Hello there, I'm Cody the Coin Raptor, and welcome to my channel. I'm here to talk to you today about Bitcoin's giant dip and then rip higher and what my expectations are going to be for the Bitcoin price going forward. But before we get to that, be sure to subscribe, be sure to hit that like button, and be sure to follow me on X as well. Bitcoin is up 6% today in the last 24 hours, and it has been an absolutely wild ride, okay? Because the past couple of days, Bitcoin's been kind of pulling back a little bit, hasn't been super exciting, but then we've gotten some excellent information that I want to talk about here, some really good bullish news, and that has set Bitcoin even higher. So we're going to go ahead and start off here with the economic calendar real quick here, because as I said before, and one of my videos last week, we talked about what's going to be going on this week, and I pointed out that on Tuesday we're going to go ahead and get the CPI numbers, and I want to talk very briefly about the CPI numbers. Now, CPI, Consumer Price Index, is very important because the CPI comes in lower than expected. Okay, that means that Jerome Powell and the Fed can take their foot off the accelerator pedal and stop raising rates, and that will be bullish for Bitcoin. So what happened on Tuesday? We saw exactly that thing play out. Okay, we had the core CPI come in at 0.2% when the expectation was 0.3%. Okay, so that's lower. You look at the year over year, 3.2 versus the 3.3 expected. Okay, and this is absolutely fundamental to the Bitcoin bull case, okay? It absolutely is fundamental. This has led the market to adopt more of a risk-on behavior. And now all of a sudden, you're getting a situation where there are more investors that are interested in riskier investments, so-called riskier investments, such as Bitcoin and crypto, and also tech stocks and things that are hit in a high interest rate environment. In fact, if we take a look at the CME FedWatch tool, the FedWatch tool is showing us right now that there is no expected rate hike for December's meeting, for January's meeting, and basically into next year. Basically, what we're seeing right here is the expectation that the Fed is done raising rates. And this is something I've pointed out multiple times on this channel in multiple videos. And I've said, I don't think the Fed's going to raise rates, and they basically haven't. They've given up all this ground, and they've tried to act tough, and they try to talk tough, but simply put, I don't believe they're going to raise rates again, and the market seems to not believe that either. So what does this mean for Bitcoin? Bitcoin has been on an absolute tear. We've said Bitcoin popped all the way up here to 38K, and then after that, we started to finally see it take a breather, which I said I was actually expecting it was going to happen a little bit sooner than that, but we did have a little bit of a run up here. It came up, it touched 38K, and it came back down again, all right? But what we saw is that Bitcoin came down, it found some support here at 35,500, and then even maybe just went down and touched this 20-day EMA, okay, which is currently acting as strong support for Bitcoin. If you back this out and you take a look at the 20-day EMA, you can see that this has been strong support ever since we had this huge jump up from about 27K. So right now, what we're seeing is a strengthening Bitcoin. We had a little bit of a pullback, like I expected here, and then we had a dip and then a rip higher. Today has been an absolutely crazy day for Bitcoin. We've seen significant strength, significant buying strength, but I do expect that this buying strength will eventually fade in the short term, okay? Because we are still at an RSI level that's at 70. Now, that's not super high compared to where it's been, and it's been all the way up over past 85 before, but simply speaking, it just cannot maintain this level of buying pressure that we've seen for very long. But that being said, we could still see Bitcoin run even higher in the short term before finally pulling back, finally having the selling or the buying pressure die down a little bit and giving Bitcoin just a little bit of a breather in order to move up higher into next year. I do think that's probably the likelihood. we're going to wind up seeing most likely Bitcoin come back down for a little bit before the next move even higher. So we take a look at today's move in the futures market, and what we can see here is that we had some short liquidations that led to this move higher, but really what we're seeing here is actually a buildup in the futures market, a buildup in futures contracts, okay? And these are all bullish contracts that are being opened up. So coming in here at about the 14th of November, when we saw Bitcoin dip all the way down to about 34.5, we saw a large number of long liquidations, okay? Long liquidations, and the price went down after that point. Longs got trapped here, and the price went down all the way to 34.5. Then as soon as it goes down here to 34.5, we start to see a large increase in the number of bullish contracts, okay, show up here. We can see here in the open interest, we've seen it rise pretty significantly from 77,000 all the way up here to about 83,000, and now up here to about 84,000 contracts in open interest, and they're all bullish. You can take a look at the funding. The funding rate here gives you an idea of a majority of either bullish calls or bearish calls or long calls versus short calls, and we're starting to see more long futures calls, okay? So we are seeing bullish activity. Even when Bitcoin is dropping, even when it's coming down, there's a significant number of buyers that are stepping in, and they're still buying the dip on these these rough couple of days. The past couple of days we've seen huge selling. We've still seen buyers come in here and buy the dip. If you take a look at the liquidation heat map, we can see here that it's been basically all taken out. All the shorts have been just annihilated. So the closest one that we have here, if we zoom in here to the 12-hour, we can see that the largest liquidity level is about at 38K, 38,200, which is kind of where you'd expect them to be, because as I said before, that 38K level is very clear resistance. If Bitcoin can clear that resistance and just pop up a little bit, 38,200, 38,300, we're going to see Bitcoin run again. It's going to be on fire. But again, I don't think that this will just keep going up in a straight line upwards. Bitcoin is going to have to come back down again, and it's going to have to stay down for a little while, at least go sideways for a little while, until the market finally catches up and sentiment comes back in and continues the move higher into the next year. If you take a look at the crypto fear and greed index, we can see here that we're actually down to 72. We were at extreme greed not too long ago, a couple of days ago. Now it's gone down a little bit, and this is kind of what I would expect after the past couple of days, the very, very weak volume going over the weekend, and the fact that we didn't even get to see like a Sunday pump. So right now we're seeing a still very strong demand for Bitcoin, but we're not at the extreme greed levels just yet. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is where Bitcoin is currently in the cycle. So you guys have seen this cycle chart before. This is the realized price, okay? And this gives us an idea of where Bitcoin is compared to when the next halving is going to be, right? So right now we can see that we're actually starting to approach this kind of bluish zone. So that means that we're very close to the start of the next halving. So if you see all the other times that Bitcoin has transitioned to this point here, we've had a nice little bump up. It happened here in 2012. It happened here in 2016. Nice little run up. And here in about 2020, this one was a little weird because we had the COVID bear market. That kind of skewed things a little bit. But we still had a very nice run up here, okay? And we're starting to see the same kind of thing happen right now. There are plenty of people on crypto Twitter, especially the bears, and on social media that are talking about, well, Bitcoin's going to go down below to 20K. And I've said multiple times, if it went down to 20K, it would be incredibly unlikely at this late stage in the bear market. It took a COVID pandemic in order for Bitcoin to even come anywhere close to the realized price last time this thing happened. And that's a 1 in 100-year event, a black swan event. I don't think personally that Bitcoin is going to go below 22K this late in the cycle. And it'd be very rare to see that. And I do think that we're still well on our way to heading towards the all-time high at about 69,000 during the next bull market. That's where we are right now. For now, the cycle is still intact. Now, I also want to go ahead and take a look at the net unrealized profit loss. All right, so you go ahead and take a look at the unrealized profit loss for the market, and we can see here that we're actually sitting at about 42%. So 42% unrealized profit right now for the Bitcoin market. That's pretty incredible, because when we take a look at where Bitcoin has been before at that level, that was back in April of 2022, right before the huge plunge that took us into the bear market. So we are basically out of the bear market according to the Newport levels. That puts us back into a sideways territory. I've said before, kangaroo market, but it may be the start of a potential bull market if you look at this unrealized profit loss. And the reason why this is important is because when people have a negative unrealized unrealized loss, okay, and so they're down, they're underwater in their positions, they're much more likely to sell than hold, okay? So we had here back in November, that was the bottom here when people were underwater about 31%. Now we have flipped completely in the opposite direction. We're back up to 44% in the profit, okay? The last thing I want to talk about is the Bitcoin average transaction fees. Bitcoin transaction fees have been climbing steadily ever since November started. So the last 2 weeks or so, we've seen it go from about $1.6, okay, all the way up to where it is right now, which is about $7 or so per transaction. So this is actually fairly high. We're starting to see a large amount of demand coming to the Bitcoin blockchain, and as a result, we're starting to see the spikes in the transaction price. If we back this out and take a look at a 3-year chart, we can see we're nowhere near the highs that we were back in 2021 when it was all the way up to about $62 a transaction. But we are starting to see a level that's elevated, and a level we haven't seen since this weird little May blip that we had here. And even before that, consistently, not since back in June of 2021 in that area. So we're seeing a large amount of demand for the Bitcoin blockchain, and as a result, transaction fees have gone up a lot in the past couple of weeks. All right. So that's all I've got for you guys today. Let me know what you guys think, and if you've been buying Bitcoin, if you've been selling Bitcoin, if you're still hodling like I am, leave a comment below, and I will catch you guys in the next video.